For most of you, we are 2 weeks away from Monumental. That means the crazy and the nerves are getting stirred up, and we need to make sure that we're addressing both the mental and physical aspects of training at this point. We're not going to see any fitness gains in the last 2 weeks, actually a little bit less than 2 weeks. We could see some losses, though you'd really have to try to do that. The training that we have for the next couple weeks is designed for head and body and getting your legs ready for race day. If your legs are ready and your mind is ready, that's more than half the battle. You're ready to go. Then it's a matter of executing it. You have to have all of those components to have that great race that we're all after. So as I talk through this, if there's something that mentally is a challenge for you and you think it's too much or not enough, that's a great time for us to talk and to figure out what that sweet spot is for you. So I'm going to go through the plan, and anytime I do this is the case every week, but especially now so close to Monumental, I can make an argument for and against pretty much any workout. Because if I know a specific situation, I can say, oh yeah, that's not a really good idea. But for most of you, and for private coaching runners, I think I have that tweak to where you are. So unless there's some information I don't have about maybe you're feeling really tired or you're nursing some aches and pains, if there's some information I don't have, maybe I would change that. So a great time for us to communicate and make sure that we're ready to go in 2 weeks. So the high quality workout this week, mile repeats. For some of you, I know that sounds maybe a little aggressive. What are we doing? We're 2 weeks out. Why are we doing mile repeats? Well, let me tell you, of all the great marathon races that I've watched of people that I've coached, most have done at least this, if not something harder, 2 weeks out. So this is not something unusual. But I want you to think about this in a little bit different way, especially those of you that are thinking this might be a little bit too hard. Think of this as a steady state run at threshold and true threshold. And I know most of you tend to cheat a little bit. When you get to that nice, smooth, this feels really comfortable, you're not happy there. You're overachievers. That's why you and I have met. It's because you're overachiever and you want to push yourself. So I know when you get to that nice sweet spot of I'm high-end aerobic, I'm very comfortable, I'm in balance, you push a little bit more. So it's pushing that threshold line. And for many workouts we've talked about, we want to kind of go back and forth over that line so we can push that line up. We're not really interested in that in this workout. We want to stay threshold. We want to stay comfortable. The hard part should be getting there. Once you're there, it should feel like cruise control and you almost feel like it's a little too slow. So if we think of it as a steady state, continuous run, but you're getting breaks because we're doing mile repeats. So for most of you, 3 miles is what your workout calls for. Some of you have 3 to 4 miles, and that's those of you that have been running pretty good mileage, have been at this for years and certainly could do more. Just to make sure we're keeping it a little bit lighter at 3 to 4 times mile repeat. So we want to think of it as a threshold with breaks, so it's even easier than a threshold run. We want to stay on the aerobic side or the light side of threshold. Again, 3 is enough for most of you. Some of you at lower mileages, maybe 2 is enough. We want a little bit of work, so maybe 2 is enough. And when in doubt, do less. And if this workout is freaking you out and you still think it's too much after this explanation, then we can do a continuous steady state run at 75 to 80%. So at that level, we shouldn't be getting very close to threshold at all. That, for most people, is close to marathon pace. And really, how difficult is 3 to 4 miles of marathon pace? If it's that difficult, it's probably not marathon pace. The moderate quality workout for the week is the easy to moderate run. The only reason I have moderate in there is some of you get bored running easy. Some of you, too many easy days, you start overrunning the easy days. So that's in there just to give you permission to go a little bit faster, and it's still more than a week out. So even if you overshoot it a little bit, you're going to be fine. Don't exceed moderate. And the way that I like to describe this, and you've heard this a number of times, is don't push, don't hold back. Once you feel like you're pushing, once you start becoming aware of your splits and you're thinking, I'd like to average this, stop. Just stop yourself. to stay comfortable. Moderate should be comfortable. It's not hard by definition. So a nice moderate run. If you're tired at all, if you're feeling Tuesday at all, which I doubt you really will if you run it right, then an easy run is fine. On Saturday, historically, most people have seen the Saturday before a marathon or half marathon as a goal pace run. And typically we do up to 5 miles of half marathon pace, which the really fast runners, that's fairly serious business. So for them, maybe it's only 3 miles. But 5 is typically where we max out on that half marathon goal pace the week before. Marathon is usually 8 to 10. It's rare I go over that. Sometimes it's a little bit less. We've had a longer buildup for this. If we look at the buildup that you've had for Monumental versus what you'll have in the spring for Carmel or Boston or whatever spring marathon, the spring buildup's gonna be a lot shorter. And we haven't had the opportunity to do those longer steady states, especially with good footing and good weather and all of those things that are hard to come by in the winter. So we don't need that goal pace run or that long steady state run at this point like we do maybe in a shorter buildup, whether it is for fall or spring. So I've dialed that back for most people, 5 to 6 miles at 75 to 80%. Again, that should be about marathon pace, even if you're getting ready for the half marathon. Some of you, maybe I put some half marathon goal pace in there, but 5 to 6 is enough. Most of you have 10 to 12. Some of you that I know that are a little bit more tired, either mentally or physically, it's just a long run. So that's not a verdict on what I think your fitness or your capability is on race day. It's just, here's where you are, here's what we need, and maybe it's just a long run. For those of you coming back from Chicago or Boston, again, there's some exceptions to this, but for some of you who took a little bit more of a break than others, we're just trying to get in a long run again, just get refreshed and tuned up for Monumental. So it might just be a long run. So if you're tired at all, mentally or physically, just run the long run with easy mileage and don't worry about the steady state run. And 75 to 80% should not feel hard. We're not going up to threshold. So once you feel like you're really cranking and it's too much, back off a little bit, okay? There might be some exceptions to that, and if you think you might be that, let's talk if your Training Peaks plan is any different. So I'm going back to what we had last week about landing the plane. This should be a gradual landing. So this week the mileage is coming down, the intensity is coming down, the duration of the longer workouts is dropping as well. So where you feel right now, for many of you, your last long run yesterday, you're going to feel more rested. And by the end of this week, your body's going to start thinking, we must be getting ready for something because I'm starting to feel more rested than I have for a while. And then we have race week to where we're really going to back off and you're going to feel even better. Okay? So that's the plan for the week. I do want to address something. I've heard this a few times now. I got an email earlier today from Jeff about what to wear on race day. And if we were doing a January marathon, you would have enough time in the colder weather to get dialed in again. It seems like every time we hit the cold weather, it's supposed to be 39 on Saturday, there was some craziness going on. Let's get the tights out. Let's get all this heavier running apparel. In a few months, 39 degrees, we'll be in shorts and tank tops because it'll feel so good. So part of this has to do with our acclimation to the cold, which is a much better conversation to have than getting acclimated to the heat. So for race day, what we want to do is we want to wear the least amount of possible. We want to wear the lightest apparel that you have. We're cutting weight on these shoes, right? Why would we add a bunch of weight with the apparel? And what you might do, especially if you're thinking base layers and longer short tights, not long tights, but if you're thinking of those, I know this sounds a little silly, but you might get them wet and see how much they weigh wet and compared to something else that you have. Because we don't care how something weighs when it's dry when you stand at the start line. We care how much it weighs when you're going to be carrying around for another maybe 10 miles in the marathon when it's wet from perspiration. So pick those things that don't hold a lot of water, and that's where the technical fabrics come in. If you're sweating enough or it's raining like it is right now, they're all going to get wet, but the technical fabrics don't carry and hold as much water. So the shoes, that really doesn't have anything to do with the temperature, at least at what we're going to see. If we're dealing with 0, then we start making adjustments for that. Wear the socks that you've been wearing for your long runs and you know are blister proof for you. If you think, man, I am just freezing, I need tights, don't do it. Wear calf sleeves. They're really lightweight. They're not going to be catching a lot of wind like pants might. They're not going to hold a bunch of water. That's a great way to go if you really think you need something on your lower legs and calves. For shorts, either your normal running shorts, if it's colder, short tights are good. Just make sure that you've done plenty of running in them. You know you're comfortable. You're not going to get the chafing and all that kind of good stuff. Okay. On the top, if you wear a base layer, it should be relatively snug. It doesn't have to be tight, but you don't want something that if it's a windy day, I know it doesn't sound like much, but if it's loose and it's blowing around, that's not helping you any. So a little bit tighter fit is good. Again, it doesn't have to be a compression top necessarily, but just don't have something real loose. And then personal best training singlet over it, of course. And we want that for a couple of reasons. One, well, I like to see you coming when I'm standing at the finish line. But two, if you can pick out teammates along the way, it's a big deal. And three, hopefully people are cheering for you because you're personal best training. It warms my heart when people come in from a race and they tell me that people were cheering for them. Now, you might have, who knows what on your shirt, IU, Purdue, Notre Dame, whatever, and they might cheer for you. But anyway, wear that, and it's really nice to be able to see your teammates out there and help each other along the way. I would wear light gloves. Make sure that they're not some big puffy glove that's going to hold a lot of water. For the top, it has to be pretty cold to wear a true winter running hat because all that heat is escaping. You're going to cook yourself wearing one of those. So either a headband or baseball type cap, something that's very breathable, of course, are good options there. Rarely do you need much more than that. On the arms, another good option instead of the long sleeves if you want are arm sleeves, because that's something that if you realize, wow, I really overshot this and I don't need this, those are something that you can take off and toss, and your fan base around the course, you can give those to them and they can get them back to you or whatever. So that's a good way to dress. If it's raining, it really doesn't change it a whole lot because most of the things that are truly waterproof or water resistant are going to hold in a lot of heat. Hopefully we won't get there. As you know, the cold rain is the worst thing to dress for. So hopefully it's going to be a nice day, much like yesterday, but a few, maybe 10, 20 degrees cooler, but minimal wind would be great. But we can't control that. What we can control is the training that you're going to do the next couple of weeks, get your head and your body ready to race, and then we're going to have great days at Monumental. So there's the plan for this coming week. If you have questions or concerns, let's talk and let's get those ironed out now. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.